All right, so we just wrapped up week 3 of our content, talking about building strengths and using bold boundaries in our interactions. And now we're going to move on to our coaching section, week 3. And I get to support Bonnie and Barbara in whatever they have going on. We're going to do 14 minutes each. Barbara, I'm going to mute you just to minimize any sound over there. And Bonnie, go ahead. What you got? How can I support you today?
So I am taking multiple marketing courses, and I think one of the things that is contributing to me feeling overwhelmed is I don't necessarily know how to speak to Dr. Dan specifically about how to move forward with it, because I feel like he's told me that he wants me to be the marketer, and yet there's things that he wants to do. And so I'm kind of just twiddling my thumbs, and our trainings are backing up. So we're like 3 weeks behind, and the content's not getting done. And yet I'm supposed to be on the calls that are like questionnaire calls, Q&A calls, so if there's issues that we can address them. And so for me, it's really hard because I don't, he's the man, he's the one that, has the credit card and stuff like that. And I don't know how to essentially set a healthy boundary and, discuss my needs with him and say, hey, like, I need you to do this and be focused on it so that I can get my portion done, or I need you to give me the reins to do it. So I don't know, where's my confidence? How do I set a healthy boundary in that situation? Because I do want to honor what I was hired for, but also I don't want to put myself in a place where I completely shut down because I'm so overwhelmed with everything. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I can totally get that. It's like, you want to honor him and his needs. It's his office and all that. And he hired you for a thing. And are you going to get the space to do the thing? And it's hard to be confident if you don't actually have the space to step up, make choices, and then see the fruition of those choices. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing that comes to mind is a little bit of, so I used to teach like communications classes. And so I have a couple little frameworks for how to have challenging conversations. And I think one of them might be helpful. And so I'll give you sort of what that is, and then we can flesh out how you might use it in this particular situation. Sound good? Mm-hmm. So it's what I learned it from one of my mentors, and it's called the ABC. Super easy. And so the A stands for acknowledge. And so this is a communication style. If you have something that's a little bit more on the challenging side that you want to communicate, and there's a direction you want things to go, and it'll take a little bit of boldness to go in that direction. And so A is for acknowledge. You always want to start with acknowledgement. And so this could be like, I so appreciate, how you've worked with me and how you've brought this in and how you've trusted me. Or I so appreciate, that you have all these ideas about marketing, and that you really understand X, Y, Z, or whatever the thing is. We can go into playing that out a little bit more in a minute. And then B is for bold. You gotta have to be a little bold here and say, and I recognize, I'm noticing that you hired me to do a thing, and I'm feeling a little constrained in doing what you hired me to do, because it seems that you're wanting to go in a little bit of a different direction than I am, or whatever the thing is. Mm-hmm. And then C is curiosity. So I'm curious, would you prefer if I just did what you said? Or would you like to hand the reins over to me so I can start applying some of the stuff that I'm learning so we can see how it works? Or I'm curious, do you really want me to take the reins? Or do you want to be in charge and you just kind of tell me what to do and I do it? And so that's just the framework. Acknowledgement, I'm so grateful for you this, you're so good at that. Bold, you kind of say the thing that's the hardest thing to say. And then curiosity, so what do you really want? How can we move this forward?
Okay.
And so if you'd like, we can spend some time, we've got just over 9 minutes, on crafting what you might say to Dr. Dan in this framework. Or if you feel confident that, you can do that part on your own, maybe we could focus on some of the inner pieces, the resistance to saying that, or the confidence piece. So which one do you think would be more beneficial for you?
More the resistance, honestly. Kind of like Barbara says, there is this believability that's kind of a deep-rooted, wound of not believing that you're worthy enough to say those or have those conversations because your needs aren't efficient or as much of as an importance as theirs are because they're the big wig, or you know what I mean? It's just like, or the fear of stepping on someone's toes, even, and kind of biting my own fear or biting my own overwhelm or whatever. It's just there is a definite deservability or the belief of worth that I can bring what I need to bring to the table and it be heard. I think that's huge. Something that kind of might be separate but kind of together is it's hard to have a conversation with when you have an employee or you come into a job where everyone's been here for years and years and years and I'm the newest member. And I do have a lot of ideas that are fresh eyes. I'm a fresh set of eyes. I have a ton of ideas, but when the office isn't willing to move or make those changes because they're so comfortable and yet they want this massive growth within their company. Well, how do you do that without saying, hey, listen to me because I'm, whatever. It's hard to do that because it then creates conflict with me and another coworker where there's this underlying passive aggression and just entitlement and rudeness that comes about, and then it triggers me and then I get extra defensive and it almost makes me just stop. It just makes me stop. And there was, there's this thing where I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm not, because I am new, I'm not worth saying much. And so I do keep my mouth closed a lot, but I do notice at our staff meetings, I'm the one that brings up multiple different things where people who have been there for years and years have kept their mouths closed.
Yeah.
So
thanks for sharing that. And I can so relate that. I mean, as you were talking, I'm just like, because that's really how I felt at the spiritual community. Here I was, a newbie practitioner, the youngest by decades. I was 30 years old when I graduated as a practitioner. The youngest practitioner older than me was like 50, maybe 55. And there was the majority of the practitioners had been there for 10 years or more. And so same exact thing. There I was with fresh eyes, with new ideas. And instead of them praising me and being like, yay, let's start a new direction, I became kind of the enemy. Not saying that you are saying that.
I know, but I do feel that it's definitely that there's that energy of that. Yes, absolutely.
And I think part of what was coming up for me as you were sharing is the word authority. And so it might be good before you even have the conversation that I was mentioning that you have earlier with Dr. Dan, is to have a little bit of a different conversation. And one of the things that I know about people in general is they love to help. And so one of the things that you might do is approach Dr. Dan and say, hey, can I have a private talk with you? And you can say, I need your help. I'm having a hard time clarifying with myself where my authority is here. Because you hired me to do this specific thing. And yet, as I'm sharing ideas and trying to move stuff forward, I'm getting pushback, both from you and the other people in the office. And I recognize you guys have been here for a long time, longer than me. And at the same time, whatever you were doing has kept you invisible. And you brought me on because you want to be more visible. You want to impact more lives. You want to take stuff into a different direction. And, I'm hungry to take you in that direction. But if I don't actually have the authority to do it, then I don't know why I'm here. And if I do have the authority to do it, then it's up to you to let everybody else in the office know that this is my realm of authority. So that I don't have to hold myself back and feel like I'm stepping on toes when I'm just doing what you hired me to do.
Yeah. Because it's uncomfortable when I'm questioned by other employees. Oh, so what's your position? Because your position keeps changing, and it seems like all you're doing is playing on your computer.
Ouch. Ugh. Yeah.
And you know, and it's a hard pill to swallow, because what do you say? Well, I'm doing what Dr. Dan gave me permission to do. So, you know, I mean, I'm following his instructions as being a marketer, which means I'm gonna have to play on Facebook and Instagram because that's where we're marketing.
Yep.
And like having to explain that over and over and over again, or
That shouldn't be your
feel
job.
like I have multiple eyes on me watching every like move that I make. It makes it very difficult, makes me feel very uncomfortable, and it makes me, that's where my lack of confidence and my lack of worth just goes straight down the toilet.
Yeah.
And it's hard. So
no, I think this is a really like ripe place to talk to him about, and to say,
okay.
I'm so excited to be here. You know, I'm so excited to help take this place into a new direction. But here are some things that are coming up for me as I'm moving forward. And if you really want me to have the authority to do this and do this, this is what it looks like. I'm going to have to be on Facebook. I'm going to have to be on Instagram. I'm going to have to be doing these trainings for right now to where I know how to put these things into play. And it shouldn't be my job to tell everyone what my job is. Like, you need to take that on for you, so that if they have a problem with what I'm doing, they go to you and not me, because it's wasting my time. It's denting my confidence, and it's making it to where it's not a good work atmosphere if I can't feel supported in what you've hired me to do.
Okay.
I think that is a very important conversation to have, and say, you know, I'm so excited to begin to apply these things, but I need to know what my level of authority is. I need you to be clear, not just with me, but with the office, what my role is here, so that I can get to work instead of spending my time explaining to multiple employees what I'm even doing here.
Okay.
And really make it about his benefit. You know, this is going to benefit you. And kind of like we were talking about earlier with the loose boundary setting being something that helped us before, but if we're going to get from here to there, we're going to have to do something else. You can kind of frame it to like that to him and say, look, I know that you've been doing this for so long and that got you here, but you hired me because you want to get from here to there. And to get from here to there, we're going to have to grow. We're going to have to change. We're going to have to shift up our approaches a little bit. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And there's going to be some risk involved while we figure out what works and what doesn't work. But what I know for sure is that whatever we've been doing up until this point will only continue to keep us here.
Right.
And we have to switch things up. And there might be things that I want to do that you don't understand, but I need to know that you trust me.
I definitely think it's a trust in the office. Like there is just a lack of trust, you know.
Well, also, there might even be a little bit of jealousy going on too.
Well, and then I feel like so I've had that thought myself, but then there's this feeling of I feel arrogant for thinking that.
No.
But at the same time, it's not arrogance. It's you truly have asked me to do a certain thing, and I'm trying to do a certain thing, but if your office is so comfortable as is, you're not gonna maintain the growth that you're asking for. So we need to figure out how to expand it and get it structured prior to the masses happening, so that you don't look like you're fumbling all over the place and then people don't trust you. They can't build their trust in a community where it's not structured. And if you're, that's how I see it. Yep. And it's easy to kind of have that clarity here in this conversation, in this call. But it also like internally makes me shake thinking of having this conversation with Dr. Dan, even though every time I do take something to him, he's very open and he's very receptive to what I have to say. Mm-hmm. It's just mustering up the guts to get there, to say it.
Yeah. And it's also just building up, kind of like that first person who said, thank you for asking for what you need.
Right.
It took me time and experience to build up and fathom that other people could honor my requests as well. Mm-hmm. But one thing really quick, we're at time, but I just want to touch on this point. And obviously if we were in a private session, we would go a lot deeper than we can in 14 minutes. But you said the word arrogant, and I want to just differentiate arrogance and confidence. So arrogance is when you think you are above other people and you need to prove that you are better than others. Confidence is knowing your own value, knowing your own worth, and knowing what's true for you without really needing others to agree with you. It's really, they're very different. And so arrogance is like, I'm going to place you above, or I'm going to place myself above you. Confidence is just like, I've got stuff I'm good at, and it might not be the same stuff that you're good at, but I know that this is my area of expertise, and I'm going to keep moving forward on it because I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so I think that the stuff that you're afraid is arrogance is really just you building that muscle of confidence that we've been building ever since we met, that I walked you. You're building that confidence. And so it just takes time to build up this evidence, that you can have these challenging conversations and they'll go well, that you do know what the hell you're talking about, that you were brought on for a reason. That takes time.
Right.
But I don't think it's coming from an arrogant place at all, because you're not, like, never once in anything that you said where you're like, I know better than them,
Right.
It was more just like, they're at this place and I'm confident I can take them to this place.
Yeah.
It's going to take some practice, and it's going to take some discomfort.
Right.
Especially for the people that have been doing it the same way for a long time.
And hope to goodness I'm not too rigid in more flex. I'm still able to understand but with flexibility, because a lot of times if it doesn't go a certain way, then I get overwhelmed and I shut down too. So it's just being flexible with the whole process of it.
Totally. And know that, for another, 5 weeks, you've got this time here every Monday that you can continue to get support around this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. You've got this. You're doing great. And I just want to reflect back to you that you're a very smart, powerful, committed woman who has a lot of passion. And just from the sense of, as I was talking about jealousy earlier, people who have lost that in themselves and then they see it in someone else, that can just trigger some jealousy, even if they're not conscious of it.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I know that as a woman who's very self-actualized, I feel that in the various areas of my community, and the areas that I feel it the most are with the people who aren't very self-actualized, and they look at me and they want that for themselves.
Right.
And so it's nothing to feel bad about.
Yeah, and that's one thing I keep actually I think that's one thing that keeps my defenses down, is just understanding it's their wounding.
Yep.
And I just have to meet them with compassion as much as I can, because it's going to make a difference in the long run by planting those seeds of compassion and just being like, that's how you feel. Okay, I understand, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep.
So
perfect. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully this was helpful for you.
Yes.
And I look forward to checking in more next week and seeing this growth on this.
All right, thank you.
Please stick around as much as you can. And I totally get it that you got to bounce. So I'll just kind of say goodbye to you now.
All right, bye-bye. Bye, Barbara.
But I'm going to mute you and unmute Barbara. And Barbara, I'm going to give you 16 minutes since we went a little over for Bonnie. So, all right, I'm hitting start. How may I support you, Barbara?
I've got multiple balls in the air.
I know how that goes.
And so the thing that I'm most excited about is and it's turned into, and Bonnie, I'll say a little bit about it, but I totally trust you to not, share it with powers that be, but is this, we the people, my original idea was creating flags as sort of a way of acknowledging, based on images of the Constitution, like, the whole scripted thing and sort of sepia and, in old parchment colors and stuff, but it's really grown from there to like a whole line of clothing.
Oh, nice.
And other items, because not everybody is going to hang a flag or carry it all the time. But and then when I looked up flags, like, you can't make them out of cotton because they get soggy and mildewed. But I'm like opposed to polyester, so then or nylon. And so then I found a company that, and to me this is huge, but they're in Spain. There might be somebody, on this continent that does it, but they take plastic out of the ocean and turn it into polyester. So they're like cleaning the ocean. So, any clothing items, I can do cotton, but the flags, it's like they've got to be synthetic. And so that's like pretty intimidating for me to like, while I'm also managing these other, things. To be researching, and also to like, how do I build, I want it to be like really a movement, and so how do I, build the movement if I haven't got the foundation, the groundwork set up. So then there's all the marketing language, and that kind of stuff too. But, I see it as something that could change the world, that people could really get excited about. If their flag cleans the ocean and and is a way of saying that this is our country, we the people. And so I started like designing, talking with my friend who's also a graphic designer, who's done my printing on T-shirts and banners and things in my previous life. Known it for a long time. She thinks that the we needs to be really big, and so I started working with that. So anyway, this is where I am. But meanwhile, I've got other work to do. I let myself play with it for the weekend, but but I've got people reaching out to me, and wonderful images to curate and edit, and all that kind of stuff. So
yes. So thank you, and I love the new energy that a new idea can create.
Yeah.
And I know for people like us, it's easy for us to get derailed and follow the fun and excitement of a new thing, while also getting distracted from the thing that's actually going to like pay the bills and stuff like that. And so I want to set you up for success so that you can do both. And so my thought is, what if you set aside, like, I don't know, obviously you would choose the amount, but you set aside, like, let's say, an hour, like 30 minutes to 60 minutes per day, or maybe, a minimum of 3 hours per week, that you just kind of set aside that time and you go, okay, I get to play now. And you let yourself get excited about it and kind of move that forward. But you also have pretty clear boundaries with yourself, because this is really a boundary that you're setting, to say, this right now is sort of the cherry on the ice cream on the cake, because it's not the cake itself. And I need to make sure I've got a cake to put a cherry on.
Yeah.
Because, you definitely want to be following up. I mean, I know from our chats together, it's like you may only have a couple, maybe 2 to 3 more months of really being able to do photography for a while before your break for your surgery. And so you want to make sure that you are keeping that momentum going, so that, by the time you come back from your break, people are like on your waiting list, hungry and ready to do portrait sessions with you. And that you feel like you have, fully tapped in to all of the momentum that you've been building for this last year. Because I don't want you'll already be recovering from shoulder surgery. I don't want you also carrying the weight of like feeling bad about yourself that you didn't pursue certain opportunities before it was quote unquote too late. Because that'll just weigh you down and impact your healing. And I don't mean like too late forever, but just, if you've had someone that was hungry and wanting to reach out to you, and then if you didn't follow up, And then let's say in February, they got images from someone else, you know, you might beat yourself up about that. And I want to set you up for success. And so I would say right now, you know, having like, let's say if we take 10% of your time and give it to play in the new idea, we've got 90% of your business time. I'm not talking about your personal time and your self-care time. I'm talking about like when you're on and focused on work. But I would say maybe like 45% is focused on photography, following up with clients, you know, curating images, signing up new people. And then 45% is how can I set myself up for creating income while I'm not taking pictures? Because I think those are your top priorities right now, the way that I see it.
Yeah. I mean, then the third piece, you know, is the life books or life albums. And, you know, I was sort of rethinking my prices that we talked about from both extremes. Like, you know, for Shauna's people, you know, maybe you know, maybe I would say it's $9.99, but for what package we talked about, but for them, you know, I'm giving it $7.77.
Right.
You know, because I could, you know, I can survive for a week. I mean, if it's a more sort of time limited package, I can have add-ons, you know, if they need certain kinds of help, you know, outside of what the package includes, then, you know, price for whatever. But I don't want to shock them with outrageous prices. At the same time, I had somebody friend me on Facebook today who is Leonie, the goddess. And I've met her. She's a Kathleen Gable parent, you know, and she's bigwig. And, you know, so, I mean, there are people who think if prices are too low that it's not good enough for them, you know. And that's really, you know, even though I want to serve people, you know, who can't afford me or who would be shocked, I need to taking care of myself, you know, and the amount of time I really put in and so forth. I mean, ultimately means that, you know, I would love, you know, it would be ideal to charge some hefty fees.
Yeah. And to really become known in those circles of people who can't afford it. What a gift you are.
Right. Yeah. And she's, you know, there's people in there's other, you know, people that Kathleen Gable who've got incredible stories, you know, and maybe she friended me because of Jasmine being there and talking. Jasmine might have mentioned my work for Shauna. So because she's friends with Jasmine, and so I don't know, you know, but it's like I'm sort of torn in two directions, and how do I be clear with people and get things going? So
yeah, well, and I'm going to make a suggestion, and you may hate it, but I'm going to make it anyway. What if you have two completely different routes? Like, what if one is a lower end? You give me your pictures, and I will make you a pretty book. And you're not putting all that energy into the story and you know, you're not putting so much energy into design, and you're really just kind of like, and I know that's hard for you because you want to give all the things, and I love that about you. And I think it's important to have options for people, you know. So like, for example, my Star Spiritual Sundays, I price it super low because I'm not really giving live coaching. You know, I'm creating an atmosphere and a service, and I'm giving some good content for about 20 minutes, but I'm not, you know, it's not as big of an output for me. And I'm not making as big of an impact for people because I'm not giving, you know, specific delivered coaching on what topics I'm bringing up like we're doing here. Whereas, you know, for the more higher end stuff, for like for this program, for example, because there's a live coaching aspect, I priced it quite a bit higher because I believe that the coaching that I provide has a lot of value. And so
Uh-huh.
there's 2 entry points. And so I'm just wondering
Okay.
if you can have a super low entry point. It's like 20 pages, up to, I don't even know, like what, 25 pictures, 50 pictures that you're not curating. You're just putting them in in an order or something. Again, you can take
Yeah.
your idea. And then a more high end, like, experience for people. Because one of the things that I keep reminding you is part of what you provide isn't just the end result. It's the experience of working with you, like Bonnie was sharing earlier. The experience of being in your presence, of seeing herself through your eyes, of being comfortable. For you, the way that you really care about people's stories
Uh-huh.
and that you really care about telling them truthfully and accurately and heartwarmingly and make them the hero of their own story. And really, make that high end. Like, here's your high end experience, and then be really clear on your parameters, and even maybe say like how many hours that you put into it. And break it down by, here's how much the printing costs, here's how much it would cost to hire someone for this, and kind of make them understand why it's priced that way. I think sometimes it helps to break things down like that. But I think having 2 entry points, so you can still serve those people who, just aren't in a position to invest in a big thing, but then your marketing efforts are toward the big thing.
Okay.
Right? So the other option is just like an option that's available, but that's not the thing that you're marketing. That's not what you're focused on. You're
Okay.
focused on marketing to the high-end people. And then if other people hear about it and are interested in that and go, well, yes, I do have this really, high investment experience. But if that's not something that you're, interested in or able to do, I have this. Well, it's not that, you will end up with a book. It just won't be as focused on story. I'm not going to spend as much time curating each page. It's, I'm going to help you make them look pretty and, put things together that go together. But I'm just not going to invest as much as my time into it because it's a really lengthy process and I get really invested. And
It's hard for me not to get invested. That's
I know.
my challenge,
I know. And that's why you don't market the small one, because that's not what you really want.
Right.
But it serves that part of you that wants to be able to provide a more lower cost option. So how is that landing for you? How does that feel?
Kind of okay. Like I say, I'm challenged, and then I'm like, now I've got new questions about, what the low end includes, and how do I set a boundary to with myself.
Yeah, I was going to say that's really
It's
more
my biggest challenge, because I'm just so.
Well, you're so generous and you care so much and you have these beautiful gifts that want to be given.
Yeah.
I know that I give a lot on Star Spiritual Sunday for $5 a month, and I keep checking in with myself. Do you want to raise it? And it's like, nope, I don't. This is where I want to keep this. This is what, I want it to be low point of entry, and I want it to be, less focused on business and more focused on the spirituality part. And it feeds me in a lot of different ways,
And I think you're creating content for your YouTube channel.
Totally. There's so much there that I can go back and work with.
Yeah.
And so, you can look at this, and maybe that's part of what is involved in the lower end one is, it's like, it's non-negotiable that you get rights to share that. That you get, like that is part of the lower end thing. Like maybe the higher end, like you can choose to let me share your images or not, but the lower end, it's like, I'm going to invest this much time for not as much income. I need to be able to share this. I need to be able to kind of showcase my work.
First, that'll be the one that I'm less interested in sharing.
I know. But I think for you really, because as you said, people who are spending a lot of money are going to question it if it's not a high investment.
Yeah.
And I know that those are the people who you really want to make an impact with, because people who have a lot of financial power, now this isn't true all across the board, this is a generalization, but a lot of people that are comfortable in financial power maybe don't have as much fulfillment and satisfaction in their relationships, because that's where they've been focusing a lot of their energy. And again, this is not true for everyone. I know lots of people who have lots of money and lots of heart. And, you know, what a gift to give them as the story of their life. But I'd say for you, really, you know, just going back and kind of wrapping it up, 10% of your business energy playing around with your new ideas, 45% on your current, you know, portrait practice, and then 45% on this life book or whatever else, you know, you want to.
Wait a minute, what percent on the life book?
Well, 45% on anything that's going to build your income while you aren't able to take pictures. And
Okay.
so I think the life book is part of that.
Yeah.
But I know that you also have some other ideas too, because you always have ideas. So if there's any workshops you want to teach, or, you know, anything like that, that would go in that 45%.
Okay.
And obviously it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to do a lot of math, but just as you're looking at how you're spending your time when you say you're working, you know, whatever your work time is, to really give yourself that opportunity to play, give yourself that time. Like I said, maybe it's just 30 minutes a day. You don't have to put that away. It's just, you don't want to allow that to take you off track to where then you're not focusing on the things that are going to put money in the bank right now.
Okay. And then I'm kind of waffling on the Rise Live.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently I'm not gonna, I can get to take it for free. She tried to take my credit card when I was at your event, but it was declined, you know. I'm glad, because now she seems to be offering it for free, but I'm not even sure whether I've got the time. I mean, I do kind of have this image of being, you know, developing my speaker ability as being a powerful way to spread all kinds of things. But I know that the weekend workshop is going to leave out a lot of stuff that so I'm trying to figure out whether it's worth my time doing that even.
Well, I mean, obviously it's up to you, you know, and last year when I went, I only showed up for about half of it because I had just attended a speaking training the week before and I was really burnt out. This weekend, I'm going to try my best to go to all of it, just because I want to see all the parts. But, you know, there is a lot about branding and kind of honing in on your brand, which I think would be helpful whether or not you choose to speak. And I would say the kind of people who Kristen attracts. It might be a great networking opportunity. There's lots of little partner shares and get to know your neighbor kind of stuff. And I actually did meet quite a few awesome people, even going there half the time last year. And so if you go in it with just the idea that, you know, you'll learn some stuff, maybe some stuff won't apply to you. And, you know, even if you make a commitment to make like 3 to 5 new powerful connections, that might open you up to a whole different group of people, because Kristen tends to attract people that there's some overlap with the circles that you and I run in, but there's a whole other group of people that aren't the people that we normally hang out with. So,
okay.
So those are my thoughts,
Yeah.
But either way, whatever you choose, I support your choice and I'll be there.
Okay. Fantastic.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for going over. I'm glad you got Zoom working.
Yeah.
And I hope that this has been helpful for you.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, just since we just have a couple more minutes, what was your biggest takeaway from today, either from the content or the coaching? Just, and again, no pressure, just what comes to mind.
Oh, well, I think on the coaching part, breaking it down percentage-wise kind of helps me sort of organize my thinking, and the, you know, having low end, you know, 2 entry points on the books. Yeah.
Great.
So, and then I didn't say it earlier, but somehow I'm, I don't know why I'm saying I've got a little bit of a Cinderella complex.
Oh, how did that play out?
But that came up for me. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Like the wicked stepsisters who don't understand. And
I totally see that and get that. Yeah. Well, I guess it's time to call on the fairy godmother so you can go to the ball and get your present. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Whether or not I see you this weekend, I look forward to seeing you next Monday on our week 4 call.
awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, and thanks everyone for watching.